In this video we're going to look at how we would use equations to help us solve word problems. So there's 5 steps that you should go through every time that you're solving a word problem. The first one is you need to read the problem and find out what the question is asking you, and sometimes you might need to read the problem more than once to fully understand it, and you might want to highlight or underline the important information in the problem. The second step is to define a variable. So this is what you're trying to find out. And you should write a statement such as, let x equal whatever you're representing. And you'll see in the examples how this works. The third part, which is sometimes the most difficult step, is writing an equation using that variable that you defined in step 2. And the fourth one is to solve the equation. Often that's a bit easier once you've actually written the equation. And then step 5 is to make sure that you actually answer the original question that you were asked, and to include the correct units and a full sentence with your answer. Okay, let's look at some examples about how to do this. Okay, first example is the cost of 7 pencils is £2.10. What is the cost of 1 pencil? Now you can probably work this out in your head without an equation, but we're going to just go through the steps anyway with an easy example. So the first thing we've done is we've read the question, so I know that what I'm trying to find out is the cost of 1 pencil. So my second step is to define my variable. So I'm going to let P, because P stands for pencil, equal the cost of 1 pencil. Okay, so now my equation is, if I have 7 pencils, I'm going to do 7 times the cost of each pencil, so 7 times P is going to equal to $2.10. Okay, and then to solve for P, so now I've got my equation, I just need to divide both sides by 7. So P is equal to $2.10 divided by 7 is 30p, or 0.3. Okay? And then my final step is just to write a sentence with an answer using the correct units. So the cost of 1 pencil is 30 cents. Okay, so that was a pretty straightforward equation. We just defined our variable. P was the cost of 1 pencil, because that's what we wanted to find out. We knew that we had 7 pencils, so 7 times P gives us the total cost, $2.10. And then we just solved the equation the way we normally do. We did the inverse operations, dividing by 7, and we got P is equal to 30 cents. Okay, let's try something a little bit harder. Simon and Mike made 254 runs between them at a cricket match. If Mike made 68 more runs than Simon, how many runs did each of them make? Okay, let's think about what the important information is here. Now, we know that the total amount of runs, so the total amount of runs between both Simon and Mike is 254. And we know that Mike made 68 more runs than Simon. Okay? And the question is saying how many runs did each of them make? Now we've got 2 unknown things here. We've got how many did Mike make and how many did Simon make. But you never want to have 2 variables in your equation. You only want to have 1 variable at this point. Okay, so we need to think about how we can relate Mike's amount of runs and Simon's amount of runs. So if we say let R equal Simon's runs, then we know that Mike made 68 more runs than Simon. So R plus 68, so remember R was Simon's runs, plus 68 is going to equal Mike's runs. And we know if we add together Simon's runs, so R, plus Mike's runs, plus R plus 68, we get a total of 254. So again, Simon's runs are just R, and Mike's runs are R plus 68, because he did 68 more than Simon. That equals 254. So now we've got an equation that we can solve. So on to I think that's step 4, solving our equation already. So first thing we want to do probably is to collect like terms. So r plus r gives me 2r plus 68 equals 254. Now I want to solve for r, so I want to subtract 68 from both sides. That gives me 2r is equal to 254 take away 68, which is 186. And now to get r on its own, I need to divide both sides by 2, and that gives me r is equal to 93. Now look back at the question and see what it was asking. It says how many runs did each of them make? So in the beginning we defined r as the amount of runs Simon made. So we know that Simon made 93 runs. So I'll just move this up. So Simon made 93 runs. And we also want to know how many runs Mike made. So Mike is going to make 68 more than Simon. So we need to do 93 plus 68, which gives me 161. Okay, and so that's our final answer and our final sentence. Now we can check to see that we've done the answer correctly, because their runs altogether should add up to 254. Remember, altogether they made 254 runs. So if I do 93 plus 161, I do get 254. So that means I probably have done the question correctly. So that's just a little bit of a check there. Okay, so that's our second example. We're going to do one more example together. And this one says, 5 less than a number is the same as 9 less than 3 times the number. Wow, okay, so that sounds really confusing. Let's read it one more time. 5 less than a number. So 5 less than a number. The number is going to be our variable. That's the thing that we don't know. Okay, that's the same as, whenever you see the same as, that's probably where your equals is going to go in the equation. Okay, so 5 less than a number is the same as 9 less than 3 times the number. Okay, let's define our variable now, first of all. So let's let n, for example, be equal the number we want to find out. So let n equal the number, the unknown number. Now 5 less than a number, that's the first part of the equation, 5 less than a number. So we can represent that by n minus 5, 5 less than a number. Is the same as, so that's going to be where my equals goes, 9 less than 3 times the number. Okay, 9 less than 3 times the number. So 3 times the number is 3n, and 9 less than that means I would have to subtract 9. And there's my equation. So you can see that sometimes writing the equation is the most difficult part. Now, we know how to solve equations where we've got variables on both sides. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract n from each side of the equation. That gives me minus 5 on the left is equal to 3n minus n is 2n minus 9. Okay, now I need to get n on its own, so I'm going to add 9 on both sides. That gives me 4 on the left is equal to 2n. And then I can divide both sides by 2. That cancels that out. So what I'm left with in the end is n is equal to 4 divided by 2, which is 2. Okay, so my unknown number, so the unknown number is 2. Now I can check that the same way I've been checking my equations all along. I can go back to the original statement and see if it makes sense. So it's saying 5 less than a number. So 5 less than 2 is negative 3. That should be equal to 9 less than 3 times the number. So 3 times the number is 6. 9 less than that is also negative 3. So I've got an equation here where the left-hand side equals the right-hand side. That means I've done my question correctly. Okay, so now it's time for you to try to go ahead and do some of these problems of your own, remember to go back to the first slide and always follow those 5 steps. Read the question, define your variable, write an equation, solve the equation, and then a final sentence answer.